We don't just get better by accident. We got to get better by doing. So module 2, remember, it's the 5-star TRIZ process. Module 4 is the buyer presentation. And yes, it's a lot. But how many of you guys are here because you sat through a consultation with one of my team members or myself? Raise your hand or put a 1 in the chat. Are you thankful that our team put in the effort to learn that presentation for you to get here? Do you all think you would have been here if the team wasn't as good as they were? If we weren't as good as we were, do you think you guys would have just ended up here by accident? If I threw you a link and a landing page, you wouldn't even read the landing page. If I shared with you all the testimonials, would you guys have been here without somebody sitting down and talking to you? And you guys, this investment is a lot less than the investment that you're asking somebody to make with you, correct? You're asking somebody to pay you more money than our entire 9-month program, correct? Unless you're like Molly, who's in a more rural market, like less price point. But even hers, she's averaging 3.5% commission on her listings, 3.25 to 3.5. So like she's getting more than what the average in the industry is by a considerable amount. So even though her price point's lower, she's actually making a lot of money. She actually makes more money than a lot of people have a much higher price point. I know people that do 1% listings all day long in this room. Nothing wrong with it, but like, let's get to 1.5, get to 2. You don't have to take desperation your whole life. You might need a little bit of that right now because that's just where you're at in the world, and that's okay. Like, I'll never knock you for taking business because of commission. It just means you need to level up your game. Fair? Can we all pinky swear that we're going to work on either module 2, module 4, or module 5 between now and our next call on Monday? Pick one, put it in the chat. I need to see that chat light up. 2, 4, or 5. I need that chat lit. Just one. I want you guys to pick one. Get good at one. Camila, I'm going to kick you and Sal out. You freaking Colombians. The Colombians, like, y'all think that I don't play, like, y'all think, like, come on, y'all. I live here. Can't mess with me. You are ex-Colombians at the moment. Pick one. 2, 4, 5. Pick one. Everybody needs to pick one. Get good at one thing this week. Get good at one thing this week. Like, all you have to do is get good at one thing. It'll change everything. Oh, 2, 4, 5. Gotcha, Sal. Gotcha. I appreciate that. Sorry, you see, it's 2 weeks out. We're already forgetting the chant. I already forgot that you guys joined some cult in Fort Lauderdale.
I guess we got to do it again.
I'm okay with that. So let's talk about. I know we're gonna do something a little bit different today because we haven't talked about pricing in a long time. So let's talk about the price conversation, because is it fair to say that right now in a lot of markets the world's kind of shifting? Is that a yes? Is the world kind of shifted where there's inventory sitting longer than it's ever sat, and we're having people still think that we're in 2023 with our pricing conversations, right? And is it kind of challenging to get them to think appropriately? Because remember, if we take an overpriced listing, whose fault is it that the price that we took that listing?
Ours.
Yes.
Ours.
Right. So never, ever, ever can you complain about a seller not being realistic on price, because what does that tell us? You were just not what?
Honest.
Not what?
Honest.
Honest, maybe. Yeah.
Didn't have the skills to provide them the right information and articulate the information.
Yeah. You might not have been dishonest, but you definitely weren't 100% honest, because if you believe that they're overpriced, and a lot of agents take that listing and they don't even fight the pricing, then you're being dishonest, right? We don't have the skills. Maybe we're scared to have the conversation because we don't know how to enter the conversation. So let's talk about it. Price is not a CMA. Okay. Price is not a CMA. What is a CMA?
An opinion.
It's an opinion. What else is a CMA?
It's a snapshot.
It's a snapshot. What else is a CMA?
An analysis.
It's an analysis. What else is a CMA?
All the properties that have already been sold.
All the properties that have been sold. What else is in there? A good analysis would have what?
Would have any pending, would have any actives.
Competition.
Right? What else?
History.
Okay. What is a CMA? It's an industry jargon term.
Comparative market analysis.
Yeah, what does that even mean to a person who hasn't sold a home in 6 years? So price is called market. Pricing is part of market dynamics. Would you guys agree that everything you said was the market dynamics?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's upgrade our language. Don't call it a CMA. We're going to call it a market. Like we're going to say, hey, we need to look at the market dynamics. Before we can talk pricing, we're going to need to look at the market dynamics. If your agent that you're talking to, right, if you're interviewing other agents, let's say they are, and they say, hey, let's look at the CMA, I just want to warn you that they might not be looking at all the market dynamics, the macro, the micro, the national, the international, right? The politics, all of the different things in the landscape that could cause your property to sit on the market. So if all they say is like, hey, let's look at a CMA, they might not be looking at everything. Cool? We call those average agents, right? If you haven't already labeled the average agent, you could label it there. Price is not what they want. I know Mike Ferry teaches you guys in old school sales to ask them on the phone, what do they think their home's worth? If I asked you guys on a phone call, what do you think you should pay for my program? You guys wouldn't be here because you'd say something ridiculous. Why? Because how do you know what the value of something is when you don't know the market? So we're asking the property owner to be a real estate expert. And what if they come up with an aspirational number? Then what do you think you were going to psychologically do the entire time? You are going to try to find the information that supports it instead of finding the best information. Yes or yes?
Yes.
And then we're going to do exactly what Sal said. We're not going to be honest with them. So price is not what they want. Because have y'all ever met a seller who was like reasonable with their price? Oh, I think our house is worth $500,000. You're like, no effing way. Like, how did you come up with that number? Because I was thinking $497. Like, oh, well, we're just reasonable people. What do they always say? We think our house is worth what? $550, $675. So do you want to go into a conversation where they're going to come in hitting you over the head? Well, we told you yesterday that we don't want anything less than $650, and now you're telling us $500. Isn't that a hard conversation to have? Do you want to have hard conversations around things that you've already set an expectation around? Because the minute they said 650, if you're honest, you'd be like, well, where'd you come up with that number? And now you started to break it down. And then you break it down on the phone. And when you start breaking down on the phone, if you're not very good at it, then what happens? They go, well, we just don't think we want to interview you. And now you lost what? The opportunity. Because you're trying to have an in-depth conversation with somebody who you haven't actually built any trust with. So price is not what they want. Price is what their house is actually going to have the best chance of selling at. That's what the price is. The price is where they have the best opportunity based off of what their strategy is and their goals, right? Based off of the property condition, based off of the property location, based off of any special features in the property, right? All of those things go into pricing, would they not? And so when you ask somebody this information on the phone, that's like sending a mom that's got a sick kid for 4 days to WebMD. They show up to the doctor's office, they got 92 different variations of what's wrong with the kid. And they're all probably somewhat right. But who's the expert? You or them. So if you all are asking them what they think their home is worth, I think we're doing ourselves a big disservice, and we're actually psychologically psyching ourselves up to go in and give them a number they want to hear, not what they need to hear. Fair? So price is not what they want. Pricing is a strategy, right? Pricing is a strategy. There's two factors that we should be talking about that influence pricing. And you must discuss these prior to pricing, because who here's ever talked about price with the prospect early in the conversation, and then the whole conversation was just about what? The minute you start talking about numbers, what happens?
What they want.
What happens?
It's all about price then.
It's all about price. And if you disagree with their price, now what are you?
The bad guy.
Enemy public number one. You are like the Joker, the Riddler, and all the other bad people in the world. And you went from being like Superman and Superwoman to like public enemy number one. So everything that you do before the conversation, write this down. Please write this down, tattoo this to your head. Everything you do prior to pricing is strategy and discussion. Everything you do after pricing is you trying to enforce influence on them and or what they consider manipulation or your free will. Well, you just don't know our home. Well, you don't know what we just did to our house is the best lot on the street. We've done X, Y, and Z, A, B, C, L, B, C, da ba 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 da. Anybody ever had those conversations and it feels like you're fighting with them? Are those fun conversations to have?
Nope.
No, not at all.
Ryan, I'm going to make you co-host so you can help me let people in. Is that cool?
Sure.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Could you repeat that? Everything that you do prior to?
Everything you say prior, right? Everything you say prior to the pricing is a strategy and a discussion. It's inclusive, it's banter, it's fun. It's fact finding, it's goal finding, it's discovery. What we call in sales, we call this discovery, right? So this is a discovery conversation. The minute you drop price, what does the entire conversation become about?
Right.
Price. And if they don't like your price and we don't have anything to fall back on, what happens in the conversation?
A battle. It gets uncomfortable.
Yeah. For who?
For both.
For both.
Both.
But mainly for who?
Me.
Me.
You. Why?
Yeah.
Because you're backpedaling.
And it appears so.
And you start stuttering and you start speaking faster and your tone shifts and you get those weird, like, you know, the first time you kissed your loved one, or that first like 8th grade dance that you had where you're with like the hottest person that you've ever thought in the world and you're slow dancing to them. And you just are like, oh my God, this is really happening. But at the same time, you're like trying to keep the sweat from your palms. Probably just me. And your stomach's like gurgling and you're like, oh my God, why did I eat chicken curry last night? Mom, I hate you. It's reality, you guys. Like, this is what happens when you grow up in an Indian household. It's so good and then it's so bad at the same time. And all of your nerves kick in at once. And it's just so uncomfortable. And it's exciting for some people, but for most people, it's just uncomfortable. And trying to backtrack with the seller at this point is you trying to tell them that their house isn't what? More valuable. It's you trying to just, oh, you just want to sell it for cheap. So you get what?
Paid. Quick.
You just want a quick sale. You don't care about us. Anybody ever had somebody say that other than me to them? I've actually had people say that to me. You don't care about us. You just care about getting a commission. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not what I care about here. But at that point, can I say that to them? And then it's 40 minutes of objection handling. And if you're not confident objection handling, is that like the most uncomfortable 40 minutes of your life?
Yes.
It is.
It's very difficult. I don't mind objection handling because I'm an asshole, but some of you guys are nicer than I am. And so it becomes very challenging. I don't want you guys to have to go through that because like it really takes a lot of banter and nerves of steel to continue that conversation without losing your cool. Anybody ever lost their cool with a seller?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody ever in the back of their mind think, what a freaking idiot?
I got one.
Multiple times.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's because you all didn't go through module 5. So next time you ever think anything bad about a client or a prospect, just remember, did you do module 4 and 5 well? And if you didn't, then flip the mirror onto who?
Me.
That was hard accountability, wasn't it? You all don't like me today. Allie, I'm going to have death threats today. Market dynamics and pricing strategy. We need to talk about market dynamics and the price strategy before we bring out numbers. And I'm going to show you guys a trick here on how to do that. So everybody know the 3 pricing strategies, right? If everything we discussed today was setting up the party, then the list price is the invitation. Number 2 is the frame. Before we could talk about pricing, right, we must talk about pricing strategy and market dynamics because it's my job to protect your equity, maximize your net proceeds. And this is why pricing is about positionings and the list price is just a what?
Invitation.
Invitation.
Everybody say this out loud. These 2 lines. Everybody say it. Everybody unmute and say it out loud and it's going to sound like a party in here. Let's go. Just go.
If
Everything we discussed was setting up the
set up as
party.
And the list price is an invitation.
However, before we talk pricing,
We must talk pricing strategy,
dynamics.
dynamics. That's my job. And maximize your net proceeds. That is why pricing is positioning, list price is just an invitation.
We assign a list
We assign a
price
list price
for a
Whoa.
Whoa.
Chill out, y'all. We just talked about 1 and 2. We haven't got through number 3 yet.
No.
Overachievers.
Beavers.
Look at you.
Jeez.
Good work. Good work. You guys, this is how you study a script, FYI.
It is.
Literally, this is how you learn a new language, and sales is a language. The first time you say it, you suck. The second time you say it, you suck a little bit less. The third time you say it, you probably suck more because now you're in your head and you think you should be a rock star because you did it twice. The 37th time, you're like, oh, this is how you do it. So if everything we discussed was kind of like setting up the party, right? Then the list price is just the invitation. Now, before we can talk pricing, we need to talk about two things: pricing strategy and market dynamics.
Hey, I just sent you the zoning map.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to getting that. I was actually looking for the zoning code too. Could you send that to me as well? However, before we talk price, we must talk about two things. We got to talk about the price strategy, right? Pricing strategy. We need to talk about market dynamics, because really, like, when you hire me, it's my job to protect your equity, and it's to help you maximize your net proceeds, right? Yeah, totally. That's why pricing is about positioning, and what we call the invitation is just the list price. Cool?
Cool.
If I do this better than you guys and I am not in appointments all day long, is that a problema?
Sí.
Estás bien. Listo. What up, Matt?
I think you might want to table this question, but
Okay. Let's table it then.
but can we address at some point, or maybe there's a playbook for it, when you're having a conversation about dropping price, but there's no real good evidence that you should, but it's kind of your only lever.
Yes, we could talk about that on our Monday and Tuesday calls. If we have time after this, we could talk about it.
Okay, I know it's disruptive, so
No, you're
don't worry
good.
about it now.
You're good. The way you guys bring that up, though, is it's right here. So I'll show you how to use it here in a second, Matt, because you'll see why this all makes sense when you guys learn the pricing strategies. Now, we're going to assign a list price for a plethora of reasons, many of which are based on the goals of the client, the market, like the market dynamics, and the overall timeline that they have. So before we talk about pricing, we first need to discuss your pricing strategy, right? Because what the average agent, y'all are killing me. Swearing and shit on my Zoom calls. My gosh. Because what the average agent will do is they'll just come in and talk about the comps or a CMA, right? Or the market, but they don't take into account your goals. They don't give you a full understanding of the strategies that you have available as a potential seller. So broadly speaking, there's three, watch my fingers. Broadly speaking, there are three pricing strategies, and each of them is going to drive a different buyer psychology. So is it cool if I walk you through the three pricing strategies?
Yeah.
Allie, I need help muting people. I need my buttons to work on my Stream Deck so I can mute all and unmute all. This is too much fun today. How many of you guys know the three pricing strategies? How many of you guys know the three price strategies? Put in the chat.
Aspiration.
Put in the chat a 1 if you know it, or a 2 if you don't.
Perceive and event.
How many of you haven't looked at the three price strategies? That's cool. If you're in like your first 2 weeks, I understand why. The three price strategies works everywhere. It works everywhere. I'm going to show you guys how to use it. So we're going to power through this here really fast, and I'm going to show you guys some killer ways. If my iPad charges. Maybe 1 second here. Let me try to fast charge this thing here. You'd think that if it's been sitting in the charger for half an hour, it'd turn on, but clearly it's not. Three price strategies: aspirational pricing, perceived market value, and event-based pricing. Aspirational pricing is a traditional strategy where you list higher than the relevant properties, leaving room for negotiation. This is typical when a home has features not typical for the neighborhood, right? A seller is just testing the market, or they have like what we would call a special property compared to the neighborhood. I guess, do any of these kind of apply to your present situation? They say yes, ask them what it is. Most people are going to say no. And if it is something that's special, you'll know, right? Some of you guys are selling custom built homes. Some of you guys are selling in custom neighborhoods. Some of you guys are selling golf courses, right? Some of you guys are selling waterfront, right? So if your typical waterfront home has 100 feet and you have 200 feet, is that different than the current market? Yes or yes?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yes, it is. If they say, well, we're a waterfront home with 30 feet of waterfront, but everybody else has 60, are they doing worse than the other people? They're the poor waterfront people that are trying to get the high price for the waterfront, right? Oh, gosh. This is what happens when I wake up early in the morning. Maybe they're a double wide, right? If they're a double wide and everybody's a single, then that would be, obviously, that would be a higher price point. Number 2, perceived market value. This is where you price in line with the relevant comparables, especially in line with those that are under contract. That's what we call perceived market value. There's actually really no such thing as fair market value, because fair market value is only established when a buyer and a seller come together, right?
Right.
Yes, that makes sense, right? Does that make sense to everybody?
For sure.
Makes sense. We can only have market value when we have a marketplace. And the marketplace is when a buyer and a seller are hanging out, talking about the numbers. Yeah, find a better charger here. No idea why this charger's not working. And then number 3 is what?
Event-based pricing.
We want to double tap event-based pricing. So whatever you're doing, however you're doing it, you want to double tap that you want to be at event-based pricing, right? This is where a seller prices a little bit below relevant properties to stand out and to create an auction-like environment. You guys see the hands? I'm going to turn off the screen. You guys can't see the screen, can you?
No.
It's a lie, you can. This is where the seller prices a little below relevant properties to create an auction-like environment, right? To create offers and momentum. And we can use those to win with a negotiation advantage as opposed to a pricing disadvantage. Now, what questions do you have around these strategies? If you say, do you have any questions? Oh, do you guys have any questions? That's a weaker frame. What? Because you don't actually want them to ask questions. Like, do you have any questions? No, we're good. Okay, awesome. Let's go. We don't want to talk about it. It's a weaker frame. So what questions do you have around these strategies? Now, what do you think some of the questions they're going to have are? Do you guys know why salespeople don't ask questions?
Don't have the answer.
Who said that? Who said that?
Dennis,
They don't have what?
the answer.
Y'all didn't prepare for answers, so you don't want to ask questions. You just want to give statements. That's why when you guys talk to salespeople, they say, well, I told them this, and then they still decided not to do anything. Why? Because you didn't make them a part of your conversation. So what questions do you have around these strategies? What are some of the questions that y'all think are going to arise when you talk about event-based pricing?
They'll ask which one do you think that they should go with?
Okay. They might think, they might ask you, what do you think? right? What else do you think they're going to ask you about event-based pricing? What do you think they're going to tell you about event-based pricing?
The word,
The value of the house.
They're what?
They're gonna assume that everyone's like them, and they're gonna try to lowball no matter what you list at. So they're gonna assume that you're opening them up to a lower offer out the gate.
So they might assume that you are there working for the buyers,
Just trying to get a quick sale.
trying to get a quick sale. What else do you think they might say? We don't want to
Leave money on the table.
leave money on the table. So do you think you should be prepared to answer those questions?
Definitely. Yep.
Because when you're prepared to answer, aren't you very prepared to handle any type of situation? So they're probably never going to say, well, we want the house to sell for the most amount of money. So if we do number 3, which makes the most sense, are we leaving money potentially on the table? But here's the truth. Who dictates price when it comes down to a home selling? You,
The consumer.
then
The buyer.
or the market dynamics. The market dynamics. The buyer who is willing to buy your home is the only person that actually matters. Why? It's obvious. They're the ones who are willing to put pen to paper. Everything else is hearsay. But agents get caught up in saying what? I can get you the most what?
Best price,
Money.
highest amount.
I can win. I'm the best. I can get you more than anybody else. Really? So you in your little Mercedes wearing way too much cologne and perfume control the market. Huh. Fantastic. Let me in on your secret, like, crystal ball, because like I got some money that I want to go potentially throw down the trash. Because if they had a crystal ball and they could do so much better than everybody else, well, they're called a market maker. But are we as realtors market makers, or are we just a part of the market?
market, part of it.
Just part of the market, y'all. Just
Part of the market.
Right? So when people make bold claims, tell them, like, wow, that agent made a big, bold claim. Like, what happens if the property doesn't sell? Are they going to make up the difference of what did they tell you they could get you for the property more than anybody? So did they give you a number? Oh, yeah. So what happens if the property doesn't sell for that number? Are they going to come in and stroke you a check for 50 grand? Well, no, I don't think so. Oh, okay. Are you willing to risk the one home that you need to sell so that you can move to blank, blank, blank with somebody who's making pretty outlandish, bold statements that they are a market maker? Like that they can control the market? Well, I never thought of it like that. Yeah, that's why we like to sit down and strategize before we go on tours of the home. Helpful? Helpful questions around this specifically, you guys? This is the time to ask questions.
So I have a question,
Who's that?
Elizabeth.
What's up?
If I had a buyer tell me, we need to net X amount of dollars.
Sure.
I mean, that's what they're looking at. They're going to buy their last home.
Yep.
They're retired.
Maybe
they're on a fixed income.
Maybe they're not real sellers in this market. I get what you want. So you're testing the market. So you guys are testing the market right now. Well, no, we need to move. Why do we need to move? X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, let's get into it a little bit first before we, talk about numbers. Let's just continue talking about the market dynamics before we talk about the numbers. Because I don't want to ask you what you need, because then that's me steering a conversation.
Mhm.
And what I want to do is I want to share with you the truth, and then you guys make the best decision based off of the information available. And if that means that you guys aren't moving, then that's what we do.
Mhm.
I don't
Okay.
control the market though. The market dynamics are the market dynamics, right? Cool. And then you move forward. Tracy.
Okay.
How do you actually choose the event pricing?
Well,
Price.
You don't choose the event pricing. You look at the comps, you look at the market dynamics. We'll get into it right now, but you look at what's out there, and then you work with them and you come up with the price together.
Oh, okay.
You don't choose. You guys, if you choose something, guess what happens?
You get blamed. Get the blame.
You're already gonna get blamed anyways. So don't act like you guys. We are there to give a range of numbers, based off of the market, based off of the market, based off of the comparables, based off of the activity, based off of X, Y, and Z. I would recommend we're somewhere between 400,000 and 425,000. Just so you guys know, that's a 6% range. That's a 6% range. Well, we really wanted to be at 450. So you guys wanted to be at 12% over what kind of the market holds right now. Well, I didn't think about it as that. I just wanted 450. No, I get what you want, but I guess, are we looking to test the market and go aspirational, or do we want to stay in the what? Perceived market value and the blah, blah, blah. Now, when people are overpriced, the conversation is, hey, remember when we talked about market dynamics and pricing strategy? Yeah. Well, we've been on the market for 75 days. Where do you think you are when it comes to the pricing strategy? Event-based, perceived market, or aspirational? Do you see how I flipped those? Why? Because what's the last thing I want them to hear? Aspirational. Because where are they at right now?
Aspirational.
And when the property doesn't sell and everything's sold in 30 days and you're at 60 days, but it seems like you guys are priced right, did you miss the market?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So are you
Wait,
overpriced?
say that again.
If everything sells in 30 and you're at 70,
Yeah.
did you miss the market? Or is the market telling you something?
So again, you can table this till later, but how do you evaluate? Like I've got one that's been sitting for 30 days. I priced it definitely event based, and it's still sitting there, but everything else is too. So I'm not alone.
So you're not
But
at
that doesn't help.
event.
But that doesn't help my seller.
So you're not at event-based pricing.
But if I look at all the
But
comparables
you're not at
that's
event-based
sold,
pricing.
okay. So then where is there a playbook or anything to evaluate that? Because
I'll show you.
I would argue
I'm not
based on all the evidence
I'm
I
not
have.
arguing with you, bro. I'm telling you the facts.
No. I'm not trying to come at you. I'm not
arguing
just saying,
with
like,
you.
I look at all the evidence and I say, okay, I priced it above much smaller comps that just sold 2 weeks prior. I barely priced above that, and now I'm sitting on the market still.
So did you price it, or did you come to have you gone through module 5 a couple times?
Not a couple times. We priced it, the seller and I. It wasn't like a...
Right. So first off, be careful with your guys' languages. So
Yeah.
even when we're here in role play, we did not price it. The seller chose the price. So I gave them an option and a range, and they chose to go at this price. Awesome. But the truth is that if you're at 30 days and the market's at 30 days, then you are at the market, which means you're at perceived market value, or you're at an aspirationally priced home. I don't know which one it is. But if we're at event-based pricing and 7 days is kind of what the event says, and you're at 30, then we've either missed the market and the time has shifted, and the market dynamics shifted, or the range you gave was not in that range. You guys, I can't keep asking any questions because I want to show you this, because this is going to be super valuable, right? Put your questions in the chat, because you guys might have some similar questions. Allow this computer to be quiet.
I think you're probably right. I just don't know how to evaluate at this point. Like, I don't know how to go back into it and go.
You just say, hey, can we have a conversation? Yeah, what's up? Hey, based off the market dynamics, it looks like we might have missed the market. What do you mean? We're just not there, right? Like, properties are sitting and we're just not there. And because of that, we haven't sold. And so, we have a couple of things that we could do, right? We have a couple of things that we could do. It really just depends on what you guys want, right? And we go back to their goal. And then when you go back to their goal, it reiterates whether or not, where they're at. Again, when you have a higher quality listing presentation, then the conversation around numbers becomes a lot easier. Because this is stuff that we want to address when we're talking pricing. So, hey, when the property doesn't sell, and it seems like we've done everything right, if the property doesn't sell, what does that mean? So if we're on the market for 40 days and everything else sold in 15 days, what does that mean?
It wasn't an event price.
Well, what?
It wasn't at event priced. It was perceived, or we would have gotten an offer.
So when we elevate our presentations, we elevate everything in the conversation. But you got to go back and just tell them, like, hey, based off the market dynamics, we're at 30 days. The market is at 30 days. Do we want to keep competing against the market? There's 19 houses available. Or do we want to possibly look at a new pricing strategy? Yeah, we might want to look at a new pricing. Is it cool if I walk you through the 3 pricing strategies that we discussed last time? If you've never discussed it, this would be the first time you bring it up. Hey, there's 3 pricing strategies that I would recommend. Is it cool if we walk through those so that we can kind of get a grasp on where the market's at right now? Yeah, that'd be great. Awesome. And then you just now introduce the 3 pricing strategies. So where do you feel we're at right now based off of the market? Every market in the world will respond to event-based pricing. Doesn't mean you're going to get a price, the exact listing price, right? You guys use the chat for me. Use the chat for me right now. Why is my iPad literally not working? Conversations around pricing take time. Can you guys see how rushing through the listing presentation, you're doing yourself and them a disservice? Anybody else see that? This is crazy. All right. So here's how you work. Here's how you show them in real life. You're going to have 3 sets of comparables. Okay. One's going to be, let's just use $1 million because I can do math on $1 million easy. So list price, sold price, percent list price to sold price, days on market. And if you want, you could do square foot price. Okay? So you're going to have these criteria. You're going to show them down here on another sheet what the average has been for your market. Okay, so let's say in this neighborhood, right? Let's just use, we'll use $100,000 for ease. So let's say in this neighborhood, we use $100,000, okay? And one house sells for $100K and it sells in 30 days. Hold on, wait. I got ahead of myself. Let's say the average stats on this market are 97K. List price was 103. Oh gosh. So list price is 103K. Sold price is 97K. Right? This is like somewhere around 95%. Days on market is 42. And the average price per square foot is $100. Okay? This is what you show them, right? Because this is what sets the baseline for the market. Now, let's say we have 3 comparables. 1, 2, and 3. So let's say the list price on this one was 106. The price on this one was 97. Let's say the list price on this one was 101. Let's say the sold price on here was 95. Say the sold price on this one was 101. Say the sold price on this one was 98. Whatever this percentage is, right? I don't know the percentage, but we're going to say this is somewhere around like 93. This is obviously 103. And this one is like 97. Cumulative days on market, this is 96. This is 16. This is 33. And we're going to leave price per square foot. In the chat, what's number 1? What's number 1 pricing? What's number 1 pricing? Some of you guys are putting 2. I don't know what 2 means, but what's the pricing for number 1? Everybody write it out. Type it up. What's the pricing for number 1? Why is it not event-based? Well, it's not event-based pricing, that's for sure. Why? Because what's the market? Market sold price is 97K, list price is 103. So it's not event-based pricing. It's aspirationally priced. So let's say they pick the wrong one. Let's say they pick the wrong one. This is where you have to educate them. Now, number 2 is what? Number 2 is what? We got a perceived market. Ooh, we got some perceived market value. You guys aren't looking down at the bottom. You could just look at list price. Perceived market value is where you price compared to relevant comps. Event-based pricing is where you price below. So number 2 is what? Event.
Oh.
Okay, and what's number 3? I could have been mean and just messed with you guys and done two at perceived or 2 at event. I'm going to do that to you guys next time because we have to be really good at this. Because if some of you are confused here, what do you think you're going to do when you try to teach this to a prospect?
Oh,
Probably going to mess up, correct? This is how you get them. This is how you get them every time. Because when you go back to them, Matt, and you need to have a conversation, what do you think you're going to show them again? What do we show them when we have a conversation around pricing for the second time?
So I would think I would show them what we thought it was then and then what it is now. Like looking at how we priced versus the market when we listed and then what it looks like now.
You got it. Hey, 30 days ago, we listed it. This is what we are looking at. Now, this is what we're looking at. This is the amount of competition. This is how many houses you're competing with. These are how many houses that are in this, this, and this, and this. Right? Yes, you guys, you can show the number of price reductions as well. Like you can get a lot more details in here. I'm just giving you guys the high level here. Right? I'm just giving you the super high level. Right? The thing that gives it away right here is the days on market. Right? There's a couple things that give this away. One, you have a high days on market, right? My iPad's going to die. You got a high days on market, right? Two, you have the lowest list price to sell price. Okay. Three, you have the highest listing price. Right? The reason I used 100,000 is because that's right. If the average sales price was 97K, that's like 8% over the listing price to sale price. The reason why it's hard to sell people on a price is because we don't show them anything. Show flow demo. This is showing them in real life. So and you have to ask them just like I asked you, which one is which? Which one's aspirational? Which one's event? Which one's perceived market value? Well, I don't know. Well, let's work through it together. This one is on the market for 96 days. This one's on the market for 16 days. This one's on the market for 33 days. Average days on market was how many? 42. So based off of this, right, which one do you think would be the one that's aspirationally priced? Oh, well, this one sold for the least amount and it's been on the market for 100 days. Yeah, that's almost 4.5 months of people going through your drawers and you have to leaving the house and doing this and that. And it sold for the least amount. Is that what you're looking for? No, we definitely don't want to be aspirational. Watch this. Everybody pay attention. Watch this. Red pen, what are you going to do? You're going to cross out aspirational pricing. So it's fair to say we don't want to be aspirationally priced. Yes. Yes. Okay, cool. So now that leaves us with what? 2 pricing strategies. What are the 2 pricing strategies that we're left with, everybody? Perceived
Event-based pricing and
event-based
perceived
pricing.
market value.
Now, when you have at least these 2, we know that we can't be 8% over the listing price, right? So we're golden that we don't want to be 8% over the listing price, correct? We don't want to be here, right? Okay. How come? Tie down question. How come you guys don't want to aspirationally price? Well, because we need to be X, Y, Z, ABC here, beer, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, cool. So we can just cross that one out. Yes, we can cross that one out. Now, when it comes to event-based and perceived market value, do you think that there's going to be a 5-minute conversation about this? Oh, there will be a 5-minute conversation. Because they're going to always say what? We don't want to leave what?
Money on the table.
Money on the table.
Y'all said it. Why? Because we've all heard it.
Mm-hmm.
Do all of us need to practice a lot of more times on this strategy and writing it out and typing it out? And y'all don't need fancy templates. Y'all just need to say the words confidently and comfortably. The fancy template is great, Radhi, my friend. I love you for that. But first, let's get comfortable doing it before we get fancy with templates and things like that. Yes, yes?
Yes, this is incredibly helpful, Vic. Thank you.
Who
I gotta
said
jump
that?
into another meeting. That was Matt.
Matt,
I really appreciate it.
you
That
got it,
worked out
brother.
great.
You guys
gotta
were
jump,
always
but
going
thank
to
you.
come back to this. And when we set it up the first time the right way, then when we go back the second time, what do you think happens?
Yeah, it goes real smooth. I don't think I set it up the right way in the beginning.
That's all right, bro.
But
you guys have to be like, I'm telling you, there is nothing more important in my world than learning 2, 4, 5. Like, there is nothing that you can do that's more powerful than getting good at 2, 4, and 5. Like, there's just no excuse to not go in there. You don't have time? Okay, cool. I guess you don't like money. So when you get beat by a shitty agent who has a better process, and that seller or that buyer is dealing with some idiot, just remember you didn't want to spend a couple of hours learning this. And then remember that you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me drilling my team every day for 90 minutes per day. And I'm very busy, just like you guys are. I'm not busier, I'm just busy on how to get better every single day. Allie, how often do we drill? Allie's here. How often do I drill with the team?
Every day.
How often does Aldo complain about how much we practice?
Every day.
Aldo's sales went from 5% in January to 23% 5 months later. Do you think he's happier, making a lot more money? His average, his average sale went from $3,000 to almost $9,500. Do you think he's happier? He gets hugs from you guys at events now. Why? Because he's changing lives. Do you think he's happier? Allie, did Aldo hate me for a really long period of time every day that we role played in practice and I drilled the shit out of him?
Of course.
But do you think he loves me a lot more now than he did 4 months ago?
Yep. And he still hates you as well, but he loves you.
That's okay. I told you guys I'm willing to deal with your hate. I look at his numbers every day. If you're not using your tracker, you're just being lazy. They have to fill in a tracker every day. If they don't get paid. If they hit bonus, they don't get a bonus. Why? I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to help you change lives. Not here to be your friend. If that means we need to part ways, we part ways. I do it with love. I do it with gratitude. I appreciate you for being here. But you guys, we have to step up our game. Yeah, there's some portions of the tracker that may not work perfectly. You guys, I get it. Don't message me, message Allie. She'll figure it out. Maybe you deleted something on there. Maybe a tab got erased. Who cares? What's more important is that you have the information there. Share them with Allie. She can't help you if you can't share them. If you want to be the best, wake up half an hour early every day and study whatever you need to study. Some of you are still in 2. Some of you are in 4. Some of you in 5. The great thing about learning the 3 price strategies is it works with buyers and sellers, because you can work it with the buyer. When you walk out of a house, there's 400 cars in the house driveway. You say, hey, what do you think they're priced at? Aspirational, perceived, or event? They're like, oh, this is event based. Okay, so if we want to write an offer, what do we need to do? Oh, we need to come in with guns blazing. Yeah, probably do. And then you have a file folder that they can actually touch. And you say, remember, in order to be competitive in this market, it's 12% over list price. Oh, well, we can't afford that. We can't afford it, or you don't want to go there. Well, we don't want to go there. All right, let's go back to the coffee and talk about it. 245, 245, 245, 245, 245. 30 minutes every day. Jan Michael, his business is tripled because of 245. Molly, same thing. Daniel Rude, same thing. And so many people here. 245. All right, y'all. What numbers?
245.
What numbers?
245.
245. 245. 245.
Peace out, y'all. Peace out, y'all. If you missed that training, you should go watch it on YouTube because that was absolute fire.